So today we're going to discuss assembling and disassembling. You might think that disassembly and assembly of the system unit is easy. Yes, it provides that you have done it correctly and safety. The first thing that every computer technician should keep in mind is safety. You must think that electrocution and nasty cuts are the most common injuries a computer technician might have, and we need to avoid by following simple safety procedures to disassemble and assemble a computer using integral being computer hardware servicing technician. Aside from electrocution, we must also think that the computer that we are about to disassemble requires care. Safety of the equipment must also be considered, not only thinking the computer safety but also to that of your tools. Your tools are your best friends, and you need to take good care of them so they in return can make your job easy and fast. Remember, safety do not neglect can cause catastrophic effects. So sinasabi dito na bago tayo mag-assemble at disassemble lang isang system unit ay malaman muna natin ang mga safety procedures. Kasi kung wala tayong alam about safety procedures ay pwede tayong makaharap sa mga malalang sakuna. So, usapan ngayon ay disassembling. So, ang first step is, before opening the system case, be sure to turn off the system unit, turn off and unplug the ABR, automatic voltage regulator, from the wall socket as well. So, sabi dito, papatay mo muna yung computer. Siyempre, bago mo ayusin yung system, bago ka mag-disassemble, bago ka mag-disassemble, siyempre, hindi disassemble ka ba na nakasaksak yung mo, tawag dito, yung system unit mo. Siyempre, hindi. Siyempre, makakukuryente ka din. So, ayun. So, next step tayo. Yun nga, disconnect the power cord and other cables from system unit. So, tatanggalin mo raw siya sa saksakan, sa power cord. So, next, after clearing all connected cables, put the system unit on the table. Make sure the table is clean and there is not even any liquid that could cause an accident. So, pagtapos daw nun, ipi-place mo raw yung system unit sa isang lamesa na malinis. Na walang kahit anumang likido or kahit anong inuming baso, tubig, pagkain na pwede mag-cause ng risk. So, next step is, rub your hands and touch the unpainted metal part of system unit with your bare hands to remove the ASD of your body. So, i-rub mo raw yung dalawang kamay mo, then ipi-place mo to sa likod ng system unit, so may metal part niya, sa may likod, sa may walang pintura. So, sa pamamaraang yun ay matatanggal daw ang ASD sa ating katawan. Next step is, wear anti-static gloves. ASD gloves must be used in conjunction with the grounding wrist strap in order to ensure the absolutely lowest possibility of electrostatic discharge. So, sa pagsusuot daw natin ng ASD gloves ay mapapababa ang tsansa na tayo ay mag-ground o kaya mag-oriented. No? So, next step is, remove the screws of the side cover and put the screws in the container. Tanggalin na natin yung screws ng side cover ng ating system unit. Next, wear anti-static wrist strut. This device helps a person to stay grounded while it also prevents the build-up of static electricity on the electronic device that can result in serious damage. So, ang anti-static strut daw ay tinutulungan tayo upang maging grounded daw yung katawan natin para ma-prevent daw ang static electricity on the electronic device na pwedeng magka-serious damage. Okay, next. Remove all the connectors. Tatanggalin natin lahat ng connectors. And next step is the power supply. We're going to remove the power supply and then remove the hard disk drive. If you are removing an existing hard drive from your computer, back up its information so that you can restore the information later. So you need to back up the information to restore the information later. Next step is remove the DVD drive. After that, Remove the random access memory, and then after that, remove the heatsink or the CPU fan. Use pliers to slowly twist the heatsink back and forth until it is free of the chip. Use very little pressure when twisting. When the base of heatsink gets hot enough, you'll be able to twist the heatsink of the chip. So, next step is tatanggalin daw natin yung heatsink or yung CPU fan. Gamit daw tayo ng pliers at tanda natin iti-twist ang likod ng dito ng CPU fan or heatsink. Use a very little pressure. Gagamit lang daw tayo ng maliit na pressure, no? Sa pag-twist ng heatsink. Then after that, remove the latch holding the processor and lifting the retaining piece of the away. Lift the processor straight out of the socket. Holding it, holding it by its edge. Do not try to slide the processor out of grip. And from one end, place the CPU in a safe location if you plan to use it again. Ideally, return it to its original packaging or put it in the anti-static bag. If you are not installing a new CPU right away, replace the plastic socket cover on the motherboard to keep dust out of the socket. So, remove the latch of the processor and leave it the straining piece of the way. So, tawag dito. So, pagtatanggal daw natin ng CPU sa CPU socket, huwag daw natin susubukan na slide yung processor out of the grip from the end place of the CPU na safe location. So, after natin tanggalin yung yung CPU natin, ay ilalagay natin siya sa safety place na kung may bala ka pang gamitin ulit yung CPU mo na tinanggal na yun. So, next step is removing the motherboard. Then after removing the motherboard, the side panel is usually held in place by several screws or held in place with a bracket or clamps some kind. Remove the fastener securing the side panel and carefully pull it off. So, bago matanggalin yung motherboard, may makikita kang mga screw na naka-screw. Re-remove mo muna siya. Lulusin mo muna siya. And then, after that, you're going to remove the motherboard. So, assembling na tayo. Assembling. Put the motherboard inside the case as the motherboard is being installed. Align the holes in the motherboards with the pegs or standoffs. Once aligned, begin placing screws in the motherboard that should go into the peg or standoff. Inserted earlier when screwing in the screw, you do not want the screw to be too tight. So, ipa-place daw natin ang motherboard sa isasakto mo raw yung spot ng ng screw niya. So makikita niyo naman yung may mga putas-putas na lagyanan ng screw. So i-spot mo yun sa ng system unit sa basta yun. I-align mo siya sa holes ng system unit. Then i-screw mo siya, no? After mong ma-align, i-screw mo siya. Then after that, huwag mo raw siyang ipitan yung pagka-screw kasi baka masira. Okay, next. Start by flipping the CPU locking lever up from the socket. Then you can place or aim the CPU in the socket in such a way that the gold triangle on the corner of your chip matches up with the engraved triangle on the corner of the CPU socket. A light press should then sit your CPU firmly in the socket. Lower the retention lever on the side of the socket to lock your chip into place. So, sa paglalagay daw ng CPU, pagkalagay mo rin ng CPU, may makikita ka ng mga tawag dito. Gold na triangle na na maliit. Basta makikita mo sa gilid din. Isasakto mo siya dun sa may CPU socket niya, makikita mo yun dun. Ayun yung pagka-alignment niya. So, after mo ilagay yung CPU socket niya, ipupush mo lang siya ng konti. Huwag mo masyadong huwag mo masyadong pressure kasi pwedeng masira yung natin, CPU natin. A light press nga lang daw sabi dito, no? So after that, lower the orientation lever. Bababa mo raw yung lever, then sabi ito, lock your chip into the place. So ilalock mo siya. Makikita nyo yun sa gilid, no? Ilalock mo para next is gently apply the thermal paste on CPU or heatsink, not too much. Then position your CPU fan over the back side of the CPU and line up the four corner contact points with the holes in the motherboard. Insert the contact points into the holes in the motherboard and secure them down with your CPU fans. So gently apply, dahan-dahan daw sa pag-apply ng thermal paste. Kasi yung thermal paste, pag nasobrahan yan, papangit yung pagka-tikit ng heatsink sa CPU. So, sa YouTube may mapapanood kayo na kung paano maglagay ng thermal paste ng tama. Kasi pag sumobra nga yun, papangit. So, after i-apply si thermal paste, i-apply mo naman si heatsink or si CPU fan. So, may makikita kayo sa tabi ng CPU socket, kung saan nakalagay yung CPU, may 4 na butas siya. So, sa 4 na butas na yun, i-connect mo yung dito, yung 4 na na CPU fan. So, after that, i-grip mo na siya, ilalock mo. Okay, next step is RAMs. Pag-apply ng paglagay ng RAM stick. Okay, RAM stick are keyed, which means they have a gap in the connector that will ensure you can only insert them one way. Line up your RAM so the gap on the connector corresponds with the RAM slot. So sa paglalagay natin ng RAM or random access memory, may pattern siya. Makikita nyo naman yun sa bandang ilalim niya, no? So may gold part na. Yung parang may bungi siya. I-align mo siya sa lagyanan ng random access memory. Kasi ayun yung pattern na ayun yung pattern na suitable siya dun sa pagpasok na. Next part is paglagay ng hard disk drive. So once the hard drive has been inserted, use the screws that came with it to secure the hard drive in the housing. Ideally, you should use 2 screws on each side of the hard drive. If the hard drive is loose, it can rattle and cause more noise and lead to physical damage. So, pagkalagay mo raw ng hard disk drive, no, usually daw, 2 screws ang nilalagay. Kasi, if 1 daw ilalagay mo, or pwede naman basta hindi bababa sa isa. So, pag kunyari, isa raw nilagay mo, pwede raw siyang maging mag-cause ng noise, ng ingay, or di kaya humantong sa pagkasira. So, yun ang next step tayo is put the DVD drive inside the case. No? Tapos after that, screw the power supply into place with the back of the power supply unit. Press it against the back of the case. Insert the include screws to lock the power supply into place. So, pag ilalagay mo yung power supply, i-press mo siya papunta sa likod ng inyong ng system unit. Then, i-screw mo siya. So, after that, ilalock mo. Then, yung next step is connect all the connectors. I-connect mo na lahat ng connectors. Then, after that, finally, cover the system unit. Then, so, pagtapos mo i-connect lahat ng cables, i-cover mo na siya. Lalagay mo yung niya. Pang-cover. So, yun. Tapos na.